don't mind the term African American. I don't want to be called African American.
Why is that?
I'm not African.
My grandmother was a full-blooded Iroquois.
As you're aware, in 1912, Dr. Walter Plecker became the first director of the Bureau of Vital Statistics. But he was part of the eugenics movement, which was a movement about creating one race of people, which was white, and everything else was put in a pot, as Tina Marie would say, and stir it up and call colored.
But basically, when he was the registrar for the Bureau of Vital Records, he changed the names of Indian people in Southampton County.
Exactly.
Their race from Indian to Negro or colored.
So it was referred to as colored.
The most significant thing here is to reveal the much greater amounts of Native American ancestry that are present within the African American population than most people realize, because they might have been misled by the use of terms like mulatto and also people of color.
Some of us started here in this land. Everybody wasn't brought over from Africa.
It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you. That the Indians were you.
About our lineage. Who are we? We're Black Americans. I can trace my family back, my ancestors back to the 1700s. Okay? So we're Black Americans. We have been here since the founding of the country. That matters, does it not? Does it matter that our parents, our ancestors were here since the founding, since the 1600s, since the 1700s? Is that relevant? Is that significant? Yes, I think it is. Well, I mean, my ancestors didn't slave and sweat and, toil and all that hard work that they did for Joanne Reed to have a job. She's from the Congo. They worked for Black Americans to have jobs. They did all that for Black Americans, not people from the Congo who are first-generation Americans. Not even Kamala Harris, who's Indian American and Jamaican.
Right.
My ancestors didn't work for Kamala Harris to have these benefits. They worked for Black Americans to have benefits. I think even Obama is not even a Black American. This is why using color, the skin color, is not sufficient. It's confusing.
Right.
And this is why I say white Americans and Black Americans have been in America the longest since its founding. And that is significant. That matters. That history matters. And so this is why, and I don't know why so many, and I want to get into this issue about Black women, Black American women supporting. I know it's nonprofit, but Black American women don't understand most of them, some do, but most of them don't understand. They think everything is about skin color. And that's a superficial analysis of the situation. They're not looking at the history. They don't know the history. And they're just so wedded to the political left position, embracing all of their policies. And their policies have been detrimental to Black America. They need to get away from that embrace of all these policies that are the detriment. So what I'm thinking, they're not doing their homework. They're not reading this cast your bucket where you are. Cast down your bucket where they're not reading this history. They're being superficial. They're just watching the television and going along with what the politicians say. That is not sufficient. About our
What kind of face you got, Bill? That Mandinka face.
Mandinka? What fool stuff's that you're talking about? That's African. I ain't no African.
Well, I'm Mandinka. We're proud people.
And I'm American. I'm American. I'm American. I was born here. My mammy and my daddy was born here. And my daddy's daddy. And I ain't no African.
You talk more shit than a little bit. Back to Mother Africa. That's bullshit. Without question, we are all Black Americans. You do not know a goddamn thing about Africa. I am from Detroit, Motown. So you can want Tootsie your monkey ass back to Africa if you want to.
Hey y'all, happy Educational Friday. Shout out to y'all in the building. How are y'all doing? I hope everybody's doing well. I have a really good show today. I know a lot of people may not think it is, but this is a really good show we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the Black Panther Party and the standoff they had with the police in New Orleans in the, I want to say, was it 70? Yeah, I want to say 70. Don't quote me, but we're going to get into it. And it's ironic that I have an aunt who was in that standoff. And I spoke to her today. Actually, that's what took me so long. Sorry. But I was speaking to her about her experience. Now, mind you, she went on after that to become a Muslim. And I got so much insight from her on the Black Panther piece. But I didn't realize that my uncle, the man she's been married to since 71, my uncle was really in the know and in the in crowd with the Black Muslim movement with Farrakhan. She said he done sat with and met with Elijah Muhammad Ali. He opened the mosque, she said, in Fayetteville, also the one in somewhere else out here. Like, he's super instrumental in that Black Muslim movement around the time things was getting ready to go left, right, and a third. And she told me a lot about that Farrakhan, honey. And I told y'all, she said, you know, he's from the island. He's from the Caribbean. I said, I know, ain't he? She said, listen, it was a lot of stuff going on in that in the Muslim movement around that time. And yeah, she spoke a lot about that. But she said, I need to ask him and have a conversation with him because he knows a lot about a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was in there. And I said, let him know. I will be hitting him up. But we'll table the Muslim portion of the situation because I didn't realize just between this is my grandmother's sister I'm talking about when I say my aunt. I didn't realize that between her and her husband, you literally have the Black Panther era and the Black Muslim era in two people. Like, they were there. Like, it wasn't like, oh no, we heard about it. I was in the movement, but I wasn't there. No. Let me put this up so y'all can see. My aunt was there. And a lot of y'all might have people who were there as well. But this is one of the photos, because this happened in the Desire Project. This is one of the photos of the police coming in with tanks to fight the Black Panthers. Okay? Y'all, we got a show today. And she spoke about how she lost some people. She was able to get out. And she said it straight up out of her mouth, not mine. She joined the Muslim movement. She joined the NOI or whatever, the FOI, whatever. She joined because she was trying to hide out. Girl, she was trying to get up out of there. I said, ain't nothing, and I got you, ain't he? She said, I'm going to just be honest with you. You know, her husband was already in the movement, but she said she had to get from Ryan there. It was hot. The block was hot. She married her husband and went off somewhere else. They ain't come back. She said, I had to get from Ryan there. It was hot. You know what I'm saying? So I said, you know, but it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Quee said my grandpa had a house over there in the Ninth Ward. Girl, we about to get into some things. And also, did you guys, Clarissa said, shit, I would have too. You're damn right. Yeah, la, we gonna get that firsthand knowledge on that. Because I asked her, I said, well, did the Muslim movement, I said, did it dissipate when Malcolm died or later? She said, it kind of was still doing its thing when Malcolm died. She said the one that really got them was when Elijah Muhammad died. That's what she said. When Elijah Muhammad died, she said because the son wasn't really teaching the same Black nationalist stuff that the dad was teaching. And then she went to going in on that Farrakhan, baby. I told y'all something in the milk ain't clean about that Farrakhan. I've been telling y'all. And then I told her that he said the clear people could join in too. She said, what? She said he must need some money. We gonna get into it. Oh, and by the way, I do have Top Cats. We will be doing this Zulu stream on live. BCU, shout out to BCU. We will be doing this Sunday. I don't have a time yet, but Big Chief from Big Chief University, Big Chief Legendary Top Cats will be over here. We going over, I'm talking about all the way from the Battle of New Orleans. Me and him talked today. all the way from the Battle of New Orleans, all the way to how we even come up on this Zulu stuff. Because I told y'all too, Zulu is, my grandma older than Zulu. Well, not Zulu, but you know what I mean? Like the story of it all. Like they tell you it's this ancient tribe. It's really not. We gonna get into it, bro. And it's all behind who people? The clear people. So y'all make sure y'all pull up Sunday as soon as I get a time from Top Cats, because he got a whole thing he gonna do. As soon as I get a time from him, we definitely gonna be over here josing on that. So I can't wait, y'all. I'm ready to learn too, because I'm from New Orleans and I don't know the full history of it, because they've been lying to us. You know what I'm saying? But we gonna get into it. Desmond said my OG partner from the Desire was there and fought against the pigs. Yep, I'm telling you, it was crazy out here in these streets. Rochelle Tide, hey Tide. Rochelle says just sending support. And thank you, Vu. Oh man, thank you so much for always coming through, making it rain, Titi. I make it rain. I make it rain. I make it rain on them hoes. I make it rain. I make it rain. I make it rain on them hoes. You are so appreciated. I love you so much, and thank you so much for all your support, because that's what matters the most. Everybody in here being here, that's what matters, the support. Y'all get the likes up so we can get the video out in the algorithm. Tina Houston, thank you for the super chat, says love you, Vu, and I love you back. Y'all, thank you so much. Shout out to everybody in the building. If y'all could get the likes up, that would be simply wonderful, because we got a show to get into today. Now, as I was talking to my aunt, she brought up a group of people that I didn't know anything about. And if you knew something about these people, put a 1 in the chat. I didn't say their name yet, so don't be capping on here. But she said, I said, why do you think that these people just came in and just all of a sudden started like messing with y'all? What made the police want to just pull up and pull over and pop out on y'all? I ain't say it like that. But she said it could be a multitude of things. She said, first, we were infiltrated. She said, we were infiltrated. She said by some black people. I told y'all it ain't just the clears. She said we were infiltrated by some black people. And then she also brought up the fact of there was this clear group called the Weathermen. Put a 1 in the chat if you knew about the Weathermen. I think I got a better picture of them. Here they go. Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever heard of the Weathermen. Put a 2 in the chat if this is your first time hearing about this group, this white radical group called the Weathermen. I know it was my first time hearing about it. I had never heard about these people. But apparently, the Black Panther Party and the Weathermen were working together. We gonna get into it. And she believes that it could be some infiltration through that way as well. So we're gonna get into it. Y'all get the likes up on the video, because this is interesting, at least to me, because when you hear about the Black Panther Party, you never hear about these clear people who, according to my aunt, according to her, she said there was some gun-wielding, gun-toting clear people. She didn't call them clear. She said white. She said some white boys who really was extremely militant. As a matter of fact, when I pulled them up, they called them the white Black Panthers, because that's how militant they were. And apparently these people worked together, and she believes that the infiltration came through the black people that infiltrated the Muslim movement and the Black Panther movement, and also the clears. Okay. She said also the government did not like that the clears was working with the Black Panthers and whatever. But we are going to get into it. So before we get into that, since we don't know much about the clears, let's do this. Let's get into the Weathermen. Who are the Weathermen? Because I'm like, you mean like the Weatherman on TV? And she was just like, no, it was the group, the Weathermen. I was like, yeah, but did they call them that? And she said, yes. So I'm just like, why would they call themselves the Weathermen? Neither here nor there. We about to get into who these folks is, because I'm trying to see something. I'm literally trying to see who are the Weathermen. Please get the likes up on the video. So here we go. Let me share my screen so you guys can see it. We know who the Black Panthers are, and we're going to get more into that later. But, yeah, they did hate that optic, Lala. But we need to figure out who are the Weathermen. Okay. Now, this is according to synestheticmag.com. Synestheticmagazine.com. Okay, whatever. Weathermen, the white Black Panthers who tried to revolutionize America with student riots. That's another thing. She said we were all children. She said 17, 18, 19. So these were kids we're talking about, okay? Now here are the Weathermen. And it says, born from the ashes of Columbia University, 1968, student riots on racial rights. The Weather Underground organization was a radical white movement that sided the Black Panthers and tried to put an end to American society's imperialism and racism through an attempted revolution. You know, one thing my aunt did bring up was that punk. What's the punk name? J. Edgar Hoover, and how he was basically like on them. So she did bring up the punk. She did. However, I'm not sure that, like, was this, I have a question, like, was this group really who they say they were? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, remember, these are the Weathermen. Let's get into it. It says August 1st, 1989, the smoke lifting from a cigarette balanced on a see-through crystal ashtray reaches the ceilings. It bounced back and rapidly wraps the room. The rhythmic clanging of typewriter stops. Two fingers retrieve the cigarette that left to its, we ain't got time for all that, girl. Shut up. Get us to the point. The letter addressed to Guy Mangonello, National Promoters Director at Priority Records. The message's urgent matter is the lyrics of a song distributed by the label NWA's F the Police. Violent crime, a major problem in our community, writes Alharic. It says, reached an unprecedented high in 1988. 78 law enforcement officers were feloniously slain in the line of duty during 1988, 4 more in 1987. Law enforcement officers dedicated their lives to protect our citizens, and recordings such as the one from NWA and both are both discouraged and degrading to the brave, dedicated officers. Okay. The letter ends with the Alharic's subtle warning about the FBI's adversity to that song. However, only concerns is expressed and no withdrawal of the single is demanded. There's no need to say that there was the label headquarters in 6430 Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood. The U.S. Department of Justice stamp on the letter didn't make quite of an impression, as proved by the song's chart success. All right, straight out of Compton, we don't need to know about that. I need to get to these folks. Hold on, girl, what did I just do? Okay, let's go. Sorry here. All right. April 4th, 1968, late afternoon, warm and weak springtime sun rays seep in through the blinds of a room of the Columbia University campus, New York. Oh, she did say she did hitchhike to Woodstock in New York, but that's when my auntie was a hippie too, but whole nother story. The window is closed to soften the noise coming from the nearby building site. They say they are refurbishing the gymnasium on the campus. Someone told John earlier in the day at the canteen. Surely it is good news, but not for John. In fact, there are two building entrances, one on the upper north side for the students and one on the back for the residents of the nearby neighborhood of Morningside Heights, mostly populated by Afro-Americans. John is finding it hard to focus on his typewriter. The noise, another excuse to perpetrate class division. The revision books piled up. The article left unfinished. John turns to the radio volume up in an attempt to cover both the drilling and his fragmented thoughts. All right. We need to go back. It's nearly 6 p.m. Okay, I think this is where we need to be. It's nearly 6 p.m. The day is unfolding unproductively, and the construction workers have stopped for a while now. John is called back to reality by the radio's loudness breaking through the late afternoon quiet. It says, you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. Bob Dylan's Subterranean Homesick Blues is playing. John remembered how just 3 years before Dylan was booed at the Newport Folk Festival when he was walked on stage with an electric lineup, also featuring Mike Bloomfield and guitar, and two Afro-American musicians from the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, bassist Jerome Arnold and drummer Sam Lay. Now, this is them. Let me scroll down because this is a bunch of fluff. Matter of fact, let me back out from this article. I want to go to another article because this article seems more like storytelling than the actual, because I got a few of them, than the actual history of these folks. All right, here we go. Let's go here. Because I just want to get who these people are. I don't need the I don't need that part. All right. Here we go. Weatherman stands second only to Black Panthers in its ability to conjure up the specter of revolution within America. Just as the Panthers are taken to be the unseen hand behind most acts of violent rebellion inside the Black colony, so Weatherman is held responsible for most acts of violent sabotage inside the mother country. Weathermen advocate armed struggle and the overthrow of established power. It is taken seriously, however, not so much for what it espouses as for what it has done. Weathermen had led extremely militant street demonstrations and has taken credit for bombing against major capitalist institutions. So they was out there bombing institutions. Owing to Weathermen's effort and those it has inspired, there is hardly a symbol of racist and imperialist oppression secure from violent attack. John Mitchell and J. Edgar Hoover have declared Weather people to be outlaws of the Americas and have mobilized the vast police powers of the state against them. Now, this makes sense because when I asked my auntie why she think that they just came over there ramming on them, she said it had to be through the infiltration on the Black side, and she believes through the Weathermen. So the Weathermen were also watched by J. Edgar Hoover and them. Nevertheless, Weathermen carries out his underground activities with relative impunity. As the level of repression has grown, so too has the number of sophistication of Weathermen bombings, and this is likely to continue. This book is about these mother country revolutions. Let me scroll down because this is kind of like the intro. Chronology of events. 1960s, there is a Students for Democrat Society founded. 1962, June, SDS, I guess that's Student Democrat Society, issues 60-page Port Huron statement, which calls for an all-alliance of Black students and Peace Corps, liberal organizations, and publications to bring about progressive realignment of the Democratic Party. 1963 of June, SDS approves the document America and the New Era, which criticizes the inadequacy of the Kennedy administration's New Frontier program to solve the problem of disarmament, social justice, and racial equality. As an alternative to collaboration with liberal groups, the document calls for the independent organization of emerging insurgents forces within the civil rights, peace, and student movements. December of 63, SDS sets up Educational Research Project, or the ERAP, and it says consisting of local community and organizing projects aimed at poor whites and Blacks in 10 northern cities. In April of 65, SOS organizes the first national anti-Vietnam War march, she mentioned that, in Washington, drawing over 15,000 people, most of them students. In the following 3 months, the number of local chapters triples to well over 100, and the national membership of SDS grows to several thousand. October of that same year, Carl Oglesby, then president of SDS, openly attacks corporate liberalism, in a speech at an anti-war march in Washington. 66 of August, it says SDS National Convention at Clear Lake, Iowa, calls for student power strategy and re-emphasizes the need to do political work on the campuses. And in December, it says SDS pushes racial draft resistance as the dominant thrust of its political organizing. You see how they always need our struggle to catapult them? It also calls on its campus chapters to protest or disrupt appearances of representatives of the military-industrial complex. In June of 67, the SDS National Convention in Ann Arbor, Michigan, a new working class perspective is counterposed to the Progressive Labor Party stress on the industrial working class being the crucial legacy or agency of revolution. So it looks like there's this progression all the way up to, I want to get to the Black Panther part. Okay. Weatherman action, September 3rd. Hold on, let me scroll up right here. I think this is where we need to be. Did somebody call me? Sorry. August 29th through September 1st. What year is this? 69. Okay. Now let's go back to March. At the Austin, Texas, North Carolina, the anti-PL forces reversed the PL resolution on racism passed the previous December. The SDS alliance with Black Panther Party is substituted for the overturned PL resolution. It says internal differences are beginning to emerge within the group, favoring the RYM resolution passed the previous December. So in 69, it seemed like they're starting to get into the Black Panther Party situation. And then March, it says at the Austin, Texas, North Carolina, the anti-PL forces reversed the PL resolution on racism passed the previous. Did I just read that one? Yeah, I just read that one. The SDS National Convention in Chicago witnessed the PL-SDS split. The RYM2 statement is presented as a refinement of the original RYM resolution by the same people who had authorized or authored the original RYM proposal. During the summer of that year, let's scroll down, SDS summer programs in Michigan and Ohio developed as prototypes of Weathermen collectives. August 29th through the 1st, a 3-day mass meeting was held in Cleveland to build support for the upcoming SDS National Convention, during which Bill Ayers gave a speech. They went to action in Pittsburgh in September. They had a conspiracy 8 trial in September. So it seems like they have a whole timeline of what they were doing. Now, this is my question. This is what I would like to know about the Weathermen. What made them want to side with the Black Panther Party? Because, see, we can sit up here and we can act like, oh, maybe they just really, truly wanted to help. Now, I'm not saying that it is impossible. I'm just saying it's not probable. What made these clear kids want to just jump up and want to help all these Negroes, these militant Negroes? I told y'all before, I don't know if I told you, something about that Huey P. Newton that didn't quite sit right with me. Because the ones who were really, really militant, they got rid of them. What's his name? Fred Hampton, as you can see. The word liberal, yes, but this is the craziest part. We were just getting into that Democratic crap in the 60s. You know what I mean? Yeah, it had to be, I think it was either something they had to benefit from, or I think they were a psyop. I think that's what it is. I don't know. Something about these Weathermen that don't quite sit right with me. But neither here nor there. According to my aunt, she said that they were in this whole riot thing with the Black people. Now, this is my thing. And I'm going to share this with y'all so y'all can see it. This is my thing. Again, these are clear people who, although may be poor, although may be, you know what I'm saying, although they may be having some issues, I still don't understand. But I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't know. Something about this, I just don't trust any of it. But according to my aunt, she said they infiltrated. Hold on, let me see if I can get to that part, because I did record a little bit of what she said. Let me see. Yeah. Let me see. Let me know if y'all can hear this. Because I was just looking at all of the stuff from what happened back then.
Another person. Yeah. They had a bathroom window there. We got out the back.
Can y'all hear that? Let me know if y'all can hear that. Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear my aunt. Okay, y'all can hear it. Mm-hmm. And y'all was staying in the Desire at that time, or no?
No, we were not. I was, I want to say 19. Let me see. I got married at. We got married in 72, didn't we? 72? Okay. So I was 20, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I turned 21. We got married in 72. It was like 18 or 19. I can't remember my age. Yeah. To be honest with you. I can't remember the age I was, so it's in it, but I belong to the house in near St. Joseph Project, uptown. Mm-hmm. And they had 2 Black Panther houses in New Orleans, one uptown and one downtown in the Desire Project, the one next to the Uptown Project, St. Joseph. I think that's the name of it.
I want to get her to the part where she
Food lunch programs and tutoring programs.
Yeah.
House downtown. We were starting them up uptown, but it wasn't going as well as it was downtown.
Oh, okay.
So we decided to consolidate, and we had gotten word that gotten tipped off that police department was coming to raid our building. And stuff like that. So that's how that got started. And then it escalated. It was a standoff. We had our guns and they had their guns.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The people that lived in the area, it was off of Press Street.
Yeah.
People that live in that area and people from the project came between us and the police department. And that's when really stood out.
Yeah. So what she was talking about here was how the community helped them, because she said they set up garbage cans in the middle of the street so the police couldn't get through with their cars to get to them where they were. And that was a lot of when you have a lot of community building. Let me see. Hold on.
So in some of the other houses, not in New Orleans though, some of the other houses, when those type of correlation started happening, then it really became a problem, because then you had two groups that were parallel.
Okay, I think this is, hold on. It's like the uprising with the black.
The building that I lived at with Dorothy. So they did kill Dwight. Eldridge got arrested, a couple other people. Betty died there. Betty was 3 months pregnant.
Oh, wow. Her friend Betty, who was 3 months pregnant, she said Betty didn't play. She said Betty grabbed the blicky and Betty got the popping. She was 3 months pregnant and her friend Betty died in the situation.
Betty was 3 months pregnant.
Oh, wow.
She might be a little bit more of that, but Betty did die.
Oh, wow.
She got shot. Betty was hardcore.
And so the question I have though, Auntie, is like, so were they like just messing with y'all because of what was going on as far as like the uprising with the Black Panthers in other places? So they just came mess with y'all? Like, how did it even kick off?
Well, what happened, I think our biggest mistake was, I gotta find my slippers. Do you see my slippers? I might have left it at the door. Excuse me. The biggest mistake we made was, the Black Panther Party was infiltrated by that time. Gotten infiltrated with, African American Black people who were plants. And also, what had happened was it was a big mess with the Weathermen.
Now she talking about the Weathermen. She said they got she called it infiltrated, but infiltrated with Black people in the party, in the Panther Party, and then she said they also got caught up in some crap with the Weathermen. Look,
mess with the Weathermen. I don't know if you know anything about the Weathermen. The Weathermen was a Caucasian group. They were fighting against Vietnam, and that's how they started off. They were organized fight against Vietnam, and they had physical confrontations with the police department. And the Weathermen was not like the Peace Corps or something like that. They believed in carrying arms. So some of the biggest cities, the Black Panther Party teamed up with the Weathermen, which was very, 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 very on the radar of the FBI and CIAs and all those people as being communists. So in some of the other houses, not in New Orleans though, some of the other houses, when those type of correlation started happening, then it really became a problem, because then you had two groups that were pairing up together. Yeah. So that's where most of the problems, the Panther Party was infiltrated and implanted a lot of drugs and stuff like that. In New Orleans, that was a problem for us. Informants and things like that brought in a bunch of drugs and stuff. That's why we weren't holding many meetings and things uptown.
she talked about how the picture do look staged, huh, Lola? Listen, she talked about how what she just said was they were infiltrated by the black people and also the weathermen, and them getting with the weathermen put them on the FBI radar. It seemed to me like that was part of the plan. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why these clear people who actually have their own fight? They fighting against Vietnam. They got, remember, if you look at any Vietnam protest in America back then, unless it was a black person in the military, it was mostly clear people, like anti-Vietnam. The Negroes didn't want to go, don't get me wrong. And they were out there protesting, but for the most part, it was them. They had their own thing going. Oh, and by the way, remember one of the mistakes Martin Luther King made, Mike made, was he shifted his narrative for black rights into being talking about the Vietnam War. Okay? So when she talked about the weathermen, I was confused. I was like, well, I've never, prior to today, I'm today years old, when I found out that there were a group of clear people called the Weathermen that worked with the Black Panther Party. And this is the craziest part. Why isn't that more talked about? If it was generic and not generic, but if it was a genuine connection, why isn't that talked about? Is this something that they want to just bury? Because even when you go to Google who the Weathermen are, it don't give you this straight up. Like, you gotta like tweak the search to see who these men are and who these people are. But so far I still don't necessarily know, but I do know that they started at a college, a bunch of clear kids, and then they all of a sudden was anti-Vietnam, and then boom, all of a sudden they with the Black Panther Party. But whenever you hear about the Black Panther Party, you never, ever hear about the Weathermen. And I wonder if, you know, I don't believe in no coincidences. I believe that that's done by design, okay? Now, I want to go here with it. Let's get into this standoff in New Orleans and the Desire Project that my auntie, I told my auntie between her and her husband, they is the 60s and 70s history, okay? So I want to go with the we're going to get into this standoff. Now, according to my aunt, she said that they were doing the not the drug free. Well, she said they were doing the free school lunch program. They were doing after school tutoring. She said they were doing everything. Everything was going great until here we go with this standoff that, in my opinion, seemed like it fell into their laps. In my opinion, I could be wrong, but it seemed like all of a sudden now it's a problem. You know what I'm saying? So there's an article by WWL TV, right? And it talks about, it says 50 years ago, the Black Panthers and New Orleans police had a major standoff in Desire. It was the era of Black power, and the Panthers demanded decent housing, employment opportunities, an end to police brutality, and power to determine their destiny. Mind you, she said it was also infiltrated with drugs. That's a major thing, because remember, Vietnam had a lot of us, when they were doing the mandatory drafts, a lot of us were the ones picked to go over to Vietnam and came back strung out on that heroin. And then when it pertained to at home, they needed to implant the drugs and stuff in there to kind of mess up the people's mind. All right, it says New Orleans in 1966, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense came to life in Oakland, okay? Founded by Bobby Seale and Huey Newton in direct response to police brutality, comprised of mostly young Black people, some in their early teens, they spread far, wide, and fast. It was one of the era of Black Panther and Black liberation, and the Panthers demanded decent housing, employment opportunities, and end to police brutality, and the power to determine the destiny of Black people. I think the latter of this is the most important that put them on the radar. See, this power to determine the destiny of Black people, they never want you to have that type of liberation. Never. And I don't care what race you is, but definitely not the Negroes. And a right to defend themselves is necessary. The Panthers' ideals and methods broke away from the civil rights era of nonviolence, but despite their militancy, they were all received in the Black community, thanks in part to their free programs and educational classes. Now, remember, I told you, she said that the people in New Orleans set up barriers so that the police couldn't come across the canal where they were to get them. And she said it was a community thing. I said, well, if y'all were doing for the community, it would make sense why the community would have your back. It says one of those communities was here in Desire, one of the America's largest and poorest housing projects. Fun fact, my grandmother was born in the Desire Housing Project. The Desire Housing Project, if I can remember correctly, anybody from New Orleans could correct me if I'm wrong, is the oldest and the largest housing project in New Orleans. So basically, when they had the housing projects originally for the clears, when they finally started putting the Negroes in there after taking their houses and things of that nature, they put them all in the Desire. If you ever been to the Desire or seen the Desire Housing Project, it was a huge brick community. That's all I can say. It was you'll see it. I have video, but it was a huge, big brick community. Like I want to say they had over 100 buildings, and that's just the buildings. Probably it was crazy. It was crazy. But most of your Black Americans who were from the project in the 60s, they come out the Desire until they started putting out more, because then my grandma went to the St. Bernard, then I had people went to the Magnolia, the Callio, everybody started spreading out. But the Desire, the Florida too, the Desire was one of the main ones, okay? So boom, back to where we was. So it says, while the party's effort to combat poverty and racial injustice made them heroes to some, they became a threat to others, especially the police force. I wonder why. So what brought about, 5 years ago, that perceived threat was spread to the city of New Orleans and eventually to a long and violent standoff with police. So what brings those young men and women to the Desire Project, leading to the 10th standoff that began on Piety Street? It says, we asked some of the key players to share their recollection of what happened here 50 years ago and the implication it has on New Orleans today. This is the story behind the standoff. Let me see how long this one is, because I think I have this video queued up. Now, she did say that one of the persons went on to be a lawyer. One of them went to the military because it was a safe place of, you ain't got to worry about them coming get you from there. People obviously died. She left and got married and went off somewhere else, or whatever the case may be. But people basically had to scatter. It says, before he was an activist, before he became a Black Panther, Donald Guyton, known today as Malik Rahim, was a soldier who served in the Vietnam War. Now, this might be her friend. The only thing that is challenging was that he was being offered to young Black men, and the time was the military. He said, I was in the Navy during the Watts riots. I seen what was happening there. I was doing that during the March on Selma. Oh, my auntie was there too at the March on Selma. She been everywhere. Let me hear a little bit more of what she had to say.
Yeah. And that's like the Weathermen, like Weatherman, like on TV. That's what they call themselves?
No, it was an organization. It was a rebellious Caucasian organization. I think it started off with college students and stuff like that.
And they called themselves the Weathermen?
The Weathermen.
Wow.
Yes, it did.
That's
crazy.
What
they called themselves. But mostly like in places like in Illinois and Michigan and Los Angeles. Those are the Midwest and Western areas. That's where they paired up together a lot. We weren't interested in doing anything about the Vietnam War. We were more interested in getting what our freedom from the white man and taking ownership of our own communities.
See, she even said we weren't interested in worry about the Vietnam War. That wasn't what she just said it out her own mouth. We weren't interested in we were worried about our economic or our freedoms from the white man. Let me let her run it back one more.
Wow.
Yes, they did. That's crazy. What they called themselves. But mostly like in places like in Illinois and Michigan and Los Angeles. Those are the Midwest and Western areas. That's where they paired up together a lot. We weren't interested in doing anything about the Vietnam War. We were more interested in getting what our freedom from the white man and taking ownership of our own communities.
Right.
But we had a lot of members, particularly in New Orleans. Now, I went to one house outside of New Orleans my whole life, and that was when I went up to New York. So I don't know what was going on in Oakland, and I don't know very much of, we would get messages and get reports and things like that from all the other houses. So they had already raided Oakland, they had already raided Detroit, they had already raided in the houses in Chicago, and they were looking for, they say they were looking for drugs, and illegal stuff.
Yeah.
See, it seems to me that they were like, get rid of this whole organization. That's what it seems to me. It seems to me it was just like, you know what? Let's get rid of California. Let's get rid of Chicago. Where are these big organizations of this Black Panther? Let's get in there and neutralize all of this. And I think that obviously they were infiltrated by the blacks, but I think this Weathermen people played a part in it as well.
But like I said, they did got to the point that there was quite a bit of drugs that were infiltrated into our organization, and we truly believe that those were plans put in by the FBI.
The Weathermen or the black people, or both?
Well, we knew the Weathermen did a lot of drugs. They did acid and all kind of stuff. If you knew anything about that time in the world, that's what they did. That's what you did. So I'm not exactly what triggered them off to come to that house. I'm thinking, because everybody else was ready and arrested, New Orleans Police Department figured, hey, this is our move too.
Yeah.
This is very important, Lala, I'm sorry. She says that like they trying to link us with the deportation, even though the facts their fact numbers show we did vote for it. Let me tell you something. They always trying to link us with their stuff. All that free Palestine, all of that stuff. They always need us linked with their crap. But I think that this is now the age where we sit back and mind our business. If it doesn't directly affect us as a people, then you see what I'm saying? We don't need to be into none of this. We were into none of this. We need to let these folks, and this is why you see them crash out too. When you talk to a lot of these people, they crash out because they don't have our spirit and our help to guide them through it. You know what I'm saying? And, it's just with this Weathermen thing, they coming in with the drugs. She said they were infiltrated with drugs and the Weathermen did a lot of drugs. She said that they did acid and all those things. It's giving plant teas. But moving forward, we got to learn from our mistakes. We cannot be we can't deal with none of these folks stuff. We can't even, we need to stop sympathizing with their plight, because don't nobody sympathize with ours, literally. We absolutely have to stop sympathizing with their plight. Let's get into some of these folks' account of what they saw or what happened down at the doggone the riot thing. Hold on. But wait, hold on. I wanted to get into what this article was saying about the riot. It says National Committee to Combat Fascism. That's where we started as it was an umbrella organization under the Panthers. And then it says, Ellsworth says he co-founded the chapter in New Orleans with Stephen Green. Green, also a Vietnam veteran, was recruited into the Panthers by Geronimo Pratt, a high-ranking member of the Panther Party from Morgan City, Louisiana. I'm looking for dudes, or for all the dudes who invited me, the militant dudes. I'm a young man, 20 years old, 21. The rest were older dudes. All of them walked out of the door, so I raised my hand and said I'll join. Let me see. COINTELPRO. Betty, Ronald, and Malik joined in the midst of an all-out assault on Black politicians or political organizations across America. In the 50s, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover established the Counterintelligence Program, or COINTELPRO. In now released FBI records, COINTELPRO was meant to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, and or otherwise neutralize the activities of Black nationalists. The Black Panther Party were one of their main targets, so much so that Hoover pledged in 1969 to end the party's existence. They just had a shootout in LA. They just killed Fred Hampton. Panthers was busy or being arrested everywhere around the country, Malik said. When we first came together, said that hey man, we got to stand up, you know? That was a bad group. All they wanted to do was shoot white people and shoot the police, Betty said. It says, we never talked about shooting white people. We only talked about self-defense. We did have a lot of white people that did support us, but you wasn't hearing that. Let's get into this video.
And this nation, for all its hopes and all its boasts, will not be fully free until all its citizens are free.
The 60s was an era that started off with great promise and hope.
I have a dream today.
But hope faded.
Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee.
America was shattered. Riots and protests had taken center stage, and by the mid-60s, a new generation of activists would define the decade.
We have not yet achieved freedom from our slave master.
The revolution could be felt politically, socially, and culturally. And America was bearing witness to a movement where the pacifist ways of leaders like Dr. King would no longer suffice.
Do you see how they put in that whole Vietnam bit? These are the facts. And now I'm starting to think Muhammad Ali could have been used politically as well. I could be wrong, but it's given he could have been used politically because yes, they were drafting Black people into the military. Yes. But even my aunt said that wasn't our fight. Like, we wasn't over there freaking out about the Vietnam War. Like, we weren't. We were busy worried about our own political freedom. That's what we were worried about. So with the whole thing with Muhammad Ali, you remember the world is a stage. The world is a stage. And I want to pick my uncle's brain about his, involvement with a lot of the things too. But the world is a stage. I just always notice how they always pit in everything else to muddy the water of what this was actually about. I just find that interesting.
In 1966, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense comes to life in Oakland, California. Founded by Bobby Seale and Huey Newton and comprised of mostly young Black people, some in their early teens, they spread far, wide, and fast. It was the era of Black power and Black liberation, and the Panthers demanded decent housing, employment opportunities, an end to police brutality, and a power to determine the destiny of Black people, and a right to defend themselves if necessary. Despite their militancy, the Panthers were well received in the Black community, thanks in part to their free programs and education classes. One of those communities was here in Desire, one of America's largest and poorest housing projects. While the party's efforts to combat poverty and racial injustice made them heroes to some, they became a threat to others, especially the police force. And 50 years ago, that perceived threat would spread to the city of New Orleans.
Look how they come
and eventually a long and violent standoff with police.
So what led those young men and women to the Desire projects, leading to the violent and tense standoff with New Orleans police that started right here on Piety Street? We asked some of the key players to share their recollection of what happened here 50 years ago and its implications on the city of New Orleans. This is the story behind the standoff.
Summer is finding Negro discontent expressing itself in a number of cities throughout the nation.
There
Edgar Hoover.
Now remember, my aunt told you that basically they were doing a free breakfast program and they were infiltrated. She said she don't know if it was because of them tearing down the parties up in Cali and, in Chicago. She don't know if it was that. Whatever it was, all of a sudden, this is out of the blue for them. These folks was not waiting and preparing to fight the police at all.
Has spoken out about the dangerous character of these extremist movements in this country.
Small group of self-styled revolutionaries who are not concerned about community improvement.
The very first place that the Catholic Church ought to try to do something on a community level was in the Desire area.
The Desire Project was 100% behind us. The people love us, and the people were out here.
Trial began this morning for 12 Black Panthers accused of the attempted murder of 5 New Orleans police officers.
This the gag. They tried to charge them with murder when the police came in messing with them. Like the police came in fucking with them. And because 5 of them got killed, and shout out to rest in peace to Betty. I'm pretty sure Miss Betty probably popped 1 or 2 of them. You feel what I'm saying? But they came in and attacked those black people minding their business and then turned around and want to charge them for murder. Like, it literally doesn't make sense. But I'm telling you, it's that punk Hoover and it's the government itself. They would rather let the KKK run free and they don't do nothing to them than the Black Panthers, when we wasn't even trying to fight y'all. We just was saying, if you come fucking with us, we on that type of time too. The fuck?
The only thing that was challenging and that was being offered to young black men at that time was the military. It's a picture of me being arrested 50 years ago.
Before he was an activist, before he was a Black Panther, Donald Guyton, known today as Malik Rahim, was a soldier who served in the Vietnam War.
And I was in the Navy for doing the Watts ride. I seen what was happening there. I was doing that during the March on Selma.
It was during his tour in Vietnam that Rahim, like many other black GIs, became more politically conscious. He was fighting a war overseas in the midst of a racial revolution happening in America.
So with that, when I came out of the service...
When you came back and you became a welder...
No, I was fired.
You were fired?
Yeah, for asking how to become a welder.
Oh.
Yeah, I was told that they didn't hire as welders, and I was fired on the spot.
Just for asking?
Oh yes, oh yes. My wife and I, we was going through trouble because of the fact I was real angry, bitter. And I felt like I was used in Vietnam, or even being in the service.
I knew I was underwater.
Black man ain't got no place in the white man's military.
Like many black GIs during his time, Malik returned to the States after fighting for his country, only to be treated like a second-class citizen. By then, the civil rights movement had taken a turn from the pacifist ways of Dr. King to a more militant ideology.
The brother came off of that bridge bus, and he had a Panther paper. And I asked him, man, where you get this paper from? He said, man, there's some brothers right there on Canal Street selling these papers. I bought a paper from him, and I told him if he come over to the West Bank, get on the bus right here, come over, get off at the project. They ask for me, and I'll show them around. So with that, we started.
It was May of 1970.
A national committee to combat fascism, that's what we started as a national committee to combat fascism. It was an umbrella organization on the Panthers.
Ronald Ellsworth says he co-founded the chapter here in New Orleans with Steve Green.
So Steve Green
comes down from California.
Yeah.
And how did you meet? How did you guys meet?
Well, I tell you, the neighborhood Natchez, black Natchez in the neighborhood, older dudes, they told me, I'm looking for all the dudes who invited me, the militant dudes. I'm a young man, 20 years old, 21 years old, the rest of them older dudes. All of them walk out the door. I said, wow. You know, I raised my hand and said, I joined you. So like I said, I was the first one to officially join. But the first office that was on St. Thomas Street.
When Ron first came out, I was in a senior dwelling.
Betty Ellsworth, known then as Betty Powell, was curious about the organization forming in New Orleans.
I just begun to come to the classes on St. Thomas Street, and they would they have what they call political education classes. I kept going to the classes. Eventually, I'd go around and do a little typing in the daytime. And one of the brothers, Chucky Charles Scott, suggested that I'd be good selling the papers.
NCCF members would sell the Panther papers on Canal Street. It talked about issues of police brutality, racial injustice, revolutionary ideals in their community programs. The paper and the image of what a Panther was drew members from all over. But it also drew criticism from the federal government, who saw the Panthers and other black revolutionaries as a threat.
We don't care whether they're black Panthers or white Panthers. We just can't tolerate the disruptions of law and civil peace in this country.
In the 50s, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover established the Counterintelligence Program, or COINTELPRO. And now released FBI documents, COINTELPRO was meant to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the activities of black nationalists. And the Black Panther Party were one of their main targets.
They had just had the shootout in L.A. They had just killed Fred Hampton. Panthers was being arrested everywhere around the country when we first came together.
Oh, that was a bad group. All they wanted to do was shoot white people, shoot police. We never talked about shooting white people. We only talked about self-defense. So we did have a lot of white people that did support us, but you wasn't hearing that.
And the intense rhetoric would prove to be challenging for the revolutionaries. Just 1 month in the Panther offices near the St. Thomas Housing Project, they were served eviction papers. One of the lawyers representing them at the time was Ernest Jones.
Told us that they were about to be evicted because the owner of the office was a local criminal court judge, Bernard Baggett, and he had objected to their political education activities in and around the St. Thomas Project. We fought the eviction on grounds that the judge shouldn't be evicting them because they were exercising their First Amendment right to organize. So we ultimately agreed that they would stay there for a little while and then they would voluntarily vacate.
So that's the thing I want to know. How in Sam Hill can a judge come in and evict people for practicing their First Amendment right? You can't kick me out because I'm doing whatever political party or whatever political situation I'm in. Like, that's illegal. And the fact that they even agreed to just slowly move out is crazy. And I'm pretty sure it was some other stuff going on behind the scenes, but legally they couldn't do that to them. Legally, but you know how it goes. Y'all know how this thing goes in real life.
Where they would move to next set off a major alarm for the city administration and the police, who had already been alerted the Panthers had made it to New Orleans and believed with their arrival came trouble.
Pause, because I got the second part of this. Hold on. Yeah, they was doing them dirty. They was doing them real dirty. Real dirty. Because there's no way.
For doing what they did at the time they did it.
When I asked the National Committee to Combat Fascism how they ended up here in the Desire Projects, I got a couple of different answers. And that was actually the case as I started to dig deeper into the story. You see, 50 years later, details can be very hazy. But what we do know is they ended up here on Piety Street in a building above the Sons of Desire Cultural Center. And while they were making inroads with the community that was once here, the city was already plotting their removal.
The 60s was a very bad period for the city of New Orleans and in many other states.
Can I say this again? And I need to reiterate this. We cannot have any liberation with them other people. It's not possible. You can't do it. Hell, it's going to be some of us we can't do it with, but we damn sure cannot. There's no unity. There's no, oh, I want to help you fight. We don't need their help. We've never needed their help. We have it whenever Black America, whenever FBA, Black America, Indians, indigenous, Hebrew, Israelite, whatever you Negroes want to call yourself in 2025 and beyond. Whenever, not if, whenever we finally decide that enough is enough, we cannot have no help from nobody. Nobody. If we don't do it on our own, it will not get done. All that, can I help you? How can I be an ally? We don't need you to be an ally. Matter of fact, I don't even trust you to be a spy because you might set me up. We don't need no allies. We've never needed them in the beginning. They need our allyship. We've never needed theirs. The only way it's going to work, is if we do it ourselves. I'm telling you what I know. Okay? If we're not going to do it ourselves without the help of any of these other people, it will never happen. I just wanted to say that part.
States around.
While the Panthers were settling.
The reason I said that, because every video, every photo you see a speck of them clears. Like, no, we don't need your help to do nothing. Why would our oppressor help us? You don't care about Black folks like that. Stop that.
To the house on Piety Street, Moon Landrieu was settling into his new role as mayor of New Orleans. Landrieu, a former state rep and councilman at large, was a staunch advocate for integration. He gained a reputation and enemies in his fight to socially and politically usher New Orleans into a new era.
They were leaving New Orleans in the 60s because of the school integration crisis. It multiplied, so that many, many whites were leaving the city and going to the suburbs.
I believe that the good, well-thinking and sound-thinking Negro people of this state will reject this idea of mixing the races. I believe they will reject it because they realize it is better for their children to go to their own schools and to be taught by people of their own color.
Our racial attitudes were stagnant. There was a white dominance in the government, a white dominance in business, a white social dominance. And when I became a councilman, I was determined to try to change that world.
This is when I went to jail in the Civil Rights Movement.
Robert Tucker caught Landrieu's attention before his race for mayor. As Tucker recalls, his first encounter or non-encounter with Landrieu was during a march to City Hall in 1968 after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
And as the march was leaving to proceed on back to the Urban League office, there was a fellow standing in the breezeway between City Hall and Civil District Court. And I later learned it was Moon Landrieu. Didn't speak, didn't say anything, he just watched.
And what he'd seen was enough to ask Tucker to help him run for mayor.
So
of course,
there was a debate, a pivotal debate in the 1969-70 mayor's race. It was he and the former lieutenant governor. And the question was raised by the moderator, would you be willing to hire Black people elected? His opponent said he would hire qualified people. Qualified was obviously a code word for whites. Moon didn't draw a breath and said yes.
Peep how they just played. I think that's Mitch's grandfather. I think that's Mitch Landrieu people. I think so, Lola. I do. I think that I was thinking about that because Landrieu ain't a common name. So I think that is his people. But look how they play us. You get one side, and I watched it with this election. When they were talking about abortion, and Donald Trump, what's his name? Joe Biden wouldn't fully answer the question, and really neither did Donald Trump. But it's an alley-oop. One side saying, okay, would you hire Black people? Well, I will hire 5 qualified people. That's an alley-oop to the person on the other side. Yeah, I'll hire Black people. And he went and got his token. This is no disrespect to the brother. But he went and got his token to hire and help him win the mayoral race. And it makes sense. But it's all a game. It's all a play. It's all a play. It's not like the Landrews are some great, clear people who just love to help black people, because they don't. They've never been that. None of these clear people in Louisiana, for sure.
The black community at that point had begun to have some interest in the mayor's race, because up until then, our political choices had always been relegated to the lesser of the two evils, whites.
Moon Landrieu not only won the race, but won with more than 90% of the black vote.
So I had no doubt that when I got elected mayor, if I got elected mayor, that I would appoint black department heads along with whites, and that I would do this in every area that I could.
Tucker was one of those appointments, brought on as one of Moon's 3 executive assistants, making him one of the first influential black men in city government. The political landscape was changing.
Need a confidence boost when filing your own taxes? Add a tax.
And at the same time, you had black militants. There were riots taking place all over the United States. We didn't have.
Yes, I just did the Google, and I don't know if y'all can see this. Moon Landrieu, that's the man that's on. That's the man that's on this documentary now. Can y'all see him? He is Mitch Landrieu's grandfather. He's Mitch Landrieu's grandfather. Let me show you how stuff come full circle too. Look, he's also the clear man on the photo. Hold on. He is also the clear man on the photo with the Zulu tramps that black folks love down to the ground. Because, you know, we are lesser two evils type of people. Like they just said, I'm going to find a photo, but we are lesser the two evil type of people. We love a clear man who just don't say he racist out loud. But at the end of the day, Mitch Landrieu wasn't worth a dime. And it seems to me neither was his granddaddy neither. Okay? I'm going to let it play while I look for the photo. But that is his grandfather. Now, Mitch Landrieu, if anybody who's wondering, he was recently the mayor, I want to say within the last 10 years. He was recently the mayor. And his grandfather was the mayor as well.
Have one here. But then the Panthers came here, and they were a very militant group.
What did you know about them at that time?
I just knew them to be a very militant, aggressive group of blacks who was seeking, I don't know what the ultimate goal was. Maybe it was separation, I don't know. But it certainly was against racial injustice.
It would be one of the first major challenges for the Landrieu administration. Black revolutionaries were under fire. By 1970, Black Panther chapters across America were in shootouts with police, were arrested and jailed on a number of charges, and had developed, at least among whites, a reputation for violence. With that in mind, city government and police officials were quickly on alert.
I could not accommodate what they were trying to do here.
But the New Orleans chapter hadn't threatened any violence up until that point. Instead, they did the opposite while in the Desire projects.
So the first thing is how to restore hope. How to make people believe that, hey, you ain't gonna just have to take the abuse and oppression of racism all your life and then die.
They worked out of the community.
Did y'all notice that even though he said he would appoint black people in positions in the state, in the city, he still turned around and said he have no place for black liberation? Did y'all catch those T's? Just asking.
Center and closely with the center's director, Johnny Jackson, to operate the Panther feeding program.
Because a child cannot really go to school and learn anything if they're sitting in the classroom hungry.
Well, we didn't go around tearing big guns. No, we did party work, clinic work, sickle cell anemia. Yeah, we did that. That's where they don't highlight that. They highlight just the confrontation. We did the confrontation, not all.
All right, we bust people to the prisons. Yeah. We bust them to the polls for election when Johnny was running.
Yeah, registered.
And, you know, we went in the neighborhood. We went and made groceries on buses for people in the community that weren't able to go, like the seniors and stuff. We went clean their houses. We helped them out. But what we did was a sacrifice of love. We gave of ourselves. We didn't know what we were doing. We just saw a need and we jumped in.
Although they were painting us like a villain, internal threat, but we was the best thing the community ever had.
In 1970, the Panthers and the city government described Desire as undesirable.
It's one of the most down and deprived areas where African Americans was at. They really needed our assistance that we could give them. Deplorable. I mean, the murder rate, everything. When we got back down there, we brought the crime rate, the murder rate down because we started running the big time drug dealers out of there.
We went through Desire, and anybody who lived through that period can attest to this. The safest time in their history of being in that project was when we was there.
Bob Tucker was also concerned with Desire's crime rate and conditions.
I just been hearing a lot about it in the streets. High crime, crime-ridden. Nothing about the Panthers at that point, but just a poorly constructed housing development. And I got curious about it and embedded in Desire after I met a guy named Henry Fagan, who's deceased, but God bless his soul, just was the mayor of Desire. And so he helped me to understand what and how bad it was in that project.
While this is playing, let me show you Moon Landrieu. That's the mayor at the time of this whole Black Panther thing. Let me show you his grandson, Mitch. Mitch has been seen on many photos with the Zulu. This is also the Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club right here. He's always toasting with the Zulu. Now it's got my spidey senses tingling because we all know when it comes to these political seats, a lot of this stuff is like handed down generation to generation. It wouldn't surprise me if when Top Cats come on Sunday, make sure y'all pull up Sunday. I don't know the time yet, but I'll definitely put out a reminder. Sunday, I'm going to have Big Chief DCU Top Cats. Legendary Chief Top Cats over here. We're going to talk about the Zulu thing, and he's going all the way back to the Battle of New Orleans. But it would not surprise me if these Landrieux and people around them have things to do or had things to do with this whole conception of Zulu. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, it wouldn't surprise me because at this point, literally nothing surprises me, number one. But also, number two, it's something in the milk ain't clean. But the mayor at the time, the one who's talking, the clear man who's talking, that's his grandson, Mitch Landrieu, who was just recently the mayor before Cantrell. So I want to say, 8 years ago, y'all? 6 years ago? I can't remember. All right, back to the documentary.
Tucker did a study on the large community and reported back to the mayor. Desire housing projects were built in 1956 to house large Black families. That same year, a tenants association told the Associated Press the Desire was unsafe for human habitation, calling the project a real scandal and a blight on public housing in New Orleans. Even before Desire opened itself to tenants, the infrastructure was crumbling.
Now, the Desire project was a mistake from the start. It was built on a dump. It was poorly constructed. The place constantly flooded, and it was just too large.
There was no cement under the floors of the structures, so that you were literally walking on soil.
Were there any answers as to why it was built that way?
Well, it was built that way because that was the intent. It was a Black development, and so Desire was built in a swamp, and on a dump. So it was destined for failure. But because there was no other housing at that point in that area for Blacks, it became occupied.
In 1971, the late Johnny Jackson told the
Don't it look like a military camp, y'all? Don't that crap look literally like a military camp? Look, if that don't look like a military camp or a military base, because see, in New Orleans, we don't have skyscraper buildings. Our floors went up to the third floor. That's about it. But when you look at the structure, they build it on top of a swamp. It wouldn't surprise me if that swamp was on top of a city or a town or something like that. It wouldn't surprise me because you know the government, how they roll. You know what I'm saying? But they put these buildings that were destined for failure and then moved a whole ton of Black folks in there. So it giving military tease gives me prisoner of war tees, gives me the reason why a lot of things happen the way that they happen. It do look like a supermax prison. You ain't lying, Robin. You ain't lying. But remember, we were prisoners of war from the very beginning. We went to war with these people and lost some of these wars. Not all of them, but some of these wars we lost. But yeah, it's giving you military base tees, concentration camp tees. Yay. And my grandma's still alive. We need compensation. We need reparations. Girl, listen, reparations, y'all, I get it. Y'all be wanting reparations for slavery. And if your family was in slavery, you deserve it. But girl, we need reparations for all types of stuff. Do you hear me?
In a swamp, and on a dump. So it was destined for failure. But because there was no other housing at that point in that area for blacks, it became occupied.
In 1971, the late Johnny Jackson told the Times-Picayune 12,000 people lived in Desire, and about 8,000 of them were under the age of 18. Geographically cut off from the rest of the city, Desire residents sat isolated in the Ninth Ward. So you would understand why the Panthers would be such a force in a community that was so overpopulated and underserved.
That lady said 12,000 people lived in the Desire Project. Let that sink in. 12,000 just in that project. That goes to show you how big the Desire Project was. But 8,000 were black children, were underage. 12,000. This is how big. I told you Desire was the biggest for sure. I wasn't sure about the oldest, but now we know it is the oldest. 12,000 people in one housing project. If y'all from somewhere else and y'all have that many people in a housing project, please let me know because I want to get into it. 8,000 under 18 years old. Yes, Sonia, that is ridiculous. So imagine a movement coming around talking about free breakfast, free tutoring, helping the community. We want to get black liberation. Nigga, the whole hood behind you. What is you saying? Nigga, if I was in that project, I'm behind you. I have nothing else to lose. I literally have nothing else to lose. I'm with whatever you on. Whatever you on, I'm on. Nigga, it's 12,000 of us in one housing project. In one. That is insane. That is inhumane for the building and the structure, but it's even more insane. And when I talk about reparations, it ain't just for no bullshit. Just, all because we were told about the story of Roots. We need reparations from every which way but loose. That's why I say that $1 million, that trillion, whatever trillion Tariq looking for, I did the math. You would only get 388,000. So have at it, fat. I think Tariq said he wanted how many trillions? If you divided that by 43 million African Americans, Black Americans, whatever you want to call us, that's 380-something thousand. Good luck.
A common theme with the Panthers. Chapters across the country set up in neighborhoods just like Desire.
Yeah, it was, I think the Panthers, again, made a big difference in the community, and I don't think people gave them the credit that they rightfully deserve for doing what they did at the time they did it. These were all houses all the way down, all the way to the track.
Leonard Smith III, Pamela Devizan Everidge, and Larry Everidge Sr. all grew up in Desire, and they remember the Panthers very well.
And they implemented the breakfast program. I used to go over there and get books. They had really good books.
Well, we just set up like children that didn't get fed,
milk,
meals before they went to school, especially like kindergarten, from kindergarten to like third grade or whatever. They held the drugs down. They kept the drugs from like flowing back there.
They stopped it, actually,
yeah,
at that time.
They put a stop to it.
They put a stop to it, and they actually used to patrol. They used to do morning patrol, evening patrol.
Building a complex website shouldn't feel so complicated.
So now you're talking about safety. That's big.
Well, this was the era of being black and proud. James Brown and all that had come out, and so it was actually kind of like almost an honor for them to be in our community. And I think that because of the influences from out, made it seem like they were doing such horrible things, but they really were a...
Little Feather says, Vu, I pulled it. This was tribal land for the Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Creeks in the 1800s. Listen, let me write this down. It wouldn't surprise me. Everything they build over for something for a reason. I promise you. Thank you for that, little feather. I need to look into that. I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you so much. I'm definitely gonna make a note of that. I'm definitely gonna make a note of that. Hold on. I'm gonna write it down. Thank you so much for that. Because it's always something. They don't just find random places to build stuff on.
Positive role model for the community.
While all three admit some of the stories about the living conditions of the Desire are very true, their memories growing up in the community are vastly different than the conditions described by the city and the Panthers.
Growing up, it was actually really nice growing up. We had, it was like Desire was like a city within a city. We had our own show. We had a bowling alley. We had neighborhood stores inside the community.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you're looking from the outside, you say, and everybody may have said that, you know, every night they were shooting up the place. Well, that wasn't the case.
Stories of violence and drugs would paint a different picture of Desire that forced outsiders to fear the community. But if you spoke to those living within the confines of Desire, they'd share their stories of thousands of children skating on Christmas Day, Turkey Bowl football games, and sewing at the neighborhood community center. Desire residents were playing the best game they could with the cards they were dealt. Leonard talks about this in his award-winning documentary, A Place Called Desire.
They had about 5 or 6 stores.
It was black-owned stores.
Black-owned stores. Yeah, they had entrepreneurs in the community.
What a timestamp we at? 22:15. Hold on really quickly. Hold on. I'm trying to see something. We coming right back.
Fired on the spot.
Just for
trouble because of,
I'm trying to see something.
I was fired during the Watts ride. Me being arrested 50 years ago.
Before he was an activist, before he was a Black Panther, Donald Guyton, known today as Malik Rahim, was a soldier who served in the Vietnam War.
And I was in the Navy for...
Okay, that's Malik. So the only reason I'm asking is because my aunt just texted me. She says, I want to tell you Betty did not die at the house during the shootout. I would say no one was harmed, but that's not entirely true. Twin Abraham told us that Betty, who was pregnant, was shot. Charles, who was from the New York Panther house, so they say, said no one was hurt. Betty was never seen by anyone since. It's like she was not there. All I know is people got out to Angola without all I know is people got out of Angola without a record. Something fishy right here. Then she says, I know personally Eldridge's record was clean enough to get to be board certified attorney. I ran with 2 others. I was not there to personally see who was hurt. So, okay, let me give y'all some clarification. My aunt, although she allegedly was present, she got out. She didn't get to go back and see who all got hurt. So she was told that Betty got shot, but she said she never heard of, nobody ever seen Betty again. I'm telling you, this shit goes deep. This shit goes really deep with this infiltration shit. Then she says, Charles, who was from the New York Panther house, so they say, this is what she said. And she put that in quotation. So they say, hold on. I think he's on here too, the Charles dude. Ain't this him? Hold on, we gonna get some straightening around here. What's up? What's happening? Is this Charles? Is he the one who said he was from somewhere else? Hold on. We gonna fast forward.
So with that, we started.
It was May of 1970.
The National Committee to Combat Fascism, that's what we started as a National Committee to Combat Fascism, with an umbrella organization under the Panthers.
Ronald Ellsworth says he co-founded the chapter here in New Orleans with Steve Green.
So Steve Green comes down from California.
That ain't Charles. That's Ronald Ellsworth. I could have swore I read something and I seen Charles in there. Let's get back to where we was. We'll come back. But to the Betty person, she said that the person who was Betty was said to have been shot. She was pregnant, but they never seen her again. It's like it's like she disappeared. Let me give you her words, not mine. She says, Betty did not die at the house during the shootout. I would say no one was harmed, but that's not entirely true. Twin Abraham told us that Betty, who was pregnant, was shot. Charles, who was from the New York Panther house, so they say, said no one was hurt. Betty was never seen by anyone since. It's like she was not there. And they went out to Angola and got clean records. Let's move on.
Yeah, they had entrepreneurs in the community.
When my parents came in, it was a lot of parents, like husband and wives.
So we had like a lot of things that kept like young people like active in their mind, like keep occupied and stuff.
Then we made our own activities, because the city was kind of looked the other way when it came time the stuff that that community needed.
So when the city wasn't necessarily taking care of Desire, basically
Desire
the
was
rest
taking care of
Desire. Take care of Desire. Look out for yourself.
Still to come on the story behind the standoff.
Well, they wanted us out.
Remember, she said they were infiltrated. She said they were infiltrated. I'm sorry. She said they were infiltrated. Where the hell Betty went? What happened to Betty? Where is Betty? And what happened? Now, granted, my aunt did flee. So that could be one of the reasons why she didn't, but where the hell is Betty? I'm trying to see something. Girl, this is crazy. I'm gonna have to get her on here.
They wanted us out.
When they cut the line, you just hit it one big bang. Boom! Roll them up on them. And from there, 30 minutes later, it was us and them, a rat-a-tat-tat, shooting at us and shooting at them.
One day, we were told by our supervisor that the Black Panther Party now has a presence in the Desire Project. And that raised some eyebrows because we're thinking that that's a predominantly black housing development and they can recruit.
Why would that be
By 1960
to a black police officer? I mean, I get it. Maybe he's blue before he's black, but wouldn't on the low you be like, bet? Like, you know what I mean? I was about to say something. Go ahead.
The Black Panther Party had chapters across America, and their membership had grown to the thousands. But among the influx of members were infiltrators, placed by federal and local governments. Larry Preston Williams was an NOPD officer who worked to infiltrate radical groups as part of the department's intelligence division.
My job was to infiltrate radical organizations and do surveillances, because at that time, Panthers, the Panther operation was high priority to infiltrate and keep a watch on. And mainly because the Panther Party nationally had a reputation for confronting police officers.
So why was the Panther Party important or priority to infiltrate and not the Ku Klux Klan, who had been proven to do hate crimes?
Thank you.
Well, I'm working for a police department, and Ku Klux Klan don't attack policemen.
Sir, I'm not about to let you do that. Sir, I refuse to let you do that. The Black Panther didn't attack policemen. See, and this is the problem. This is another black man who's justifying in his mind, yes, they are the police. They are the police. But listen, he's justifying, well, they didn't infiltrate the KKK because they didn't attack the police. Sir, are you okay? When did the Black Panthers ever get together and say, we about to run in on the pigs? It never happened. It literally never happened. But I think this is probably what helped him to sleep at night, because you got to be a treason. The law is called treason. Okay. Treason is the law. Let's look up what the definition of treason is. Because I tell y'all, we need to start. Hey, that treason law got to come back. That treason has to come back. I'm telling you. Treason, the crime of betraying one's country, especially by attempting to kill the sovereign or overthrow the government. Treason. 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 Treason is gonna have to come. The law gonna have to come back. I'm telling you now. If y'all want to stick with just everybody that's black is cool, we gonna be in a hell heap of trouble. I'm telling you now. Because he really justifying in his head that the reason they didn't infiltrate the KKK because they didn't attack police, but the Black Panthers did. That's not even documented in history. So that, and he a police, he knows that. Oh, adios míos.
Reputation for confronting police officers.
So why was the Panther Party important or priority to infiltrate and not the Ku Klux Klan, who had been proven to do hate crimes?
Well, I'm working for a police department, and Ku Klux Klan don't attack policemen. The police department here was less concerned about the black community as a whole, more concerned about the police department. In other words, if there's a group that's likely to attack police officers, that got our undivided attention.
And you not about to make me believe that black man did not know that them police in his department was not KKK. I'm willing to put my neck on the chopping board. It's no different from what we got going on in America today. Everybody at their job know who racist. I don't give a damn if you work at Walmart or if you work at a Fortune 500 company. Every black person in the chat who work with clear people know which ones is racist. He knew that the KKK was the ones in blue next to him. You're not going to make me believe he didn't know that. He knew. He knew. So, of course, they're not going to attack the police because they are the police. But that's not the part that really gets me. The part that gets me is this brother Larry is on here saying, oh, well, they were most likely to attack the police. It has not even been documented that the Black Panthers attacked the police. At best, what they said was, if you continue to come in our communities, unalive us, kill us, arrest us, harass us, we will defend ourselves. Treason is the law. Treason. Treason.
Faced two fronts, being both black and blue, leaving him conflicted over the Panthers' arrival.
Did you at some
Williams was a police officer who had to face two fronts, being both black and blue, leaving him conflicted over the Panthers' arrival.
Did you at
one or two niggas on the force
some point recognize or at least say?
That's the worst part. And I know they treated him like shit on that force. It wasn't number him and another nigga. I know they treated him like shit on that force. I know it. I feel it.
Sympathize with the Panthers during that time?
I understood their program. Free breakfast in a poor neighborhood. They were concerned about health care. They had a program that consisted of probably, if I remember, 8 or 10 points. You could not argue with the 8 or 10 points. What I had to argue with was their tendency or their rhetoric about shooting police officers, that in order to protect the black community, that one time or at some time they would have to confront police.
Y'all see that guerrilla war in Nation? Remember, guerrilla warfare. Juvenile even rap about guerrilla warfare. That is our tactic that we used when we were real Indian, when we were in our nations and in our tribes. That was the warfare we used to practice when we defeated a lot of these clears. Not only that, I told y'all Malcolm X was offered by an African political person money and weapons if he can gather all the blacks in America to go into guerrilla warfare and fight back with the structure. And all them niggas cowered it out. So when you see guerrilla warfare, that is a spiritual fighting practice that we have been doing for centuries. Centuries, not tens of years. Before them clear people come here, we were enacting in guerrilla warfare.
Police officers on the streets.
So that's why they would have it in the paper. Oh Lord, guerrilla war? What's going on? They scared because they know what it is.
And that confrontation, the first one at least, would come sooner rather than later. The Panthers had been infiltrated by two undercover officers, Melvin Howard and Israel Fields. But according to the Panthers, their infiltrators were outed long before the initial confrontation with police.
You were infiltrated by the NOPD with two officers.
How did that happen, and did you have any suspicions about them when they joined you?
Well, most of us knew that they was police. If there wasn't police, we knew that they were snitches or rats. But we knew that this was the tactic that was being used around the country.
When did you confirm, or what incident happened that confirmed that those two were officers?
Who confirmed it to us was some kids. And the kids that seen them knew them from seeing them at Tulane and Broad.
That's the police station.
And these kids came and told us that, hey man, you know those two guys police.
Hey, to this day, the courthouse and all that is on Tulane and Broad. So if the kids seen them up there, they knew they was the police.
We know that. Let's just use them. Let's just keep them around.
But they wouldn't stay around for long.
Can you tell us in your own words what happened to you that night?
Well, we were beaten with guns and pushed around. We were also jammed in a corner by some 40 to 50 people jumping on us, kicking us, punching us, calling us names as pigs and so forth.
What do Elma, Jimmy, and Marcus have in common?
Now that's how you handle treason. They kept them around long enough to whoop their ass. That's what I'm talking about. You get it?
September 14th, 1970. The Panthers held what they called a people's trial, and the suspects being tried were the two NOPD officers who unsuccessfully went undercover.
The 14th of September.
14th of September.
What happened in that meeting?
And I made the mistake of telling them that Fields and Howard was police.
Well, we exposed them. We just say turn them over to the people. They let them out the door. And he went out the door. The people had him, you know. And Melvin Howard jumped over the rail and got away. But Israel Field, the people caught him in the street and beat him.
Ah.
And he ended up going running in the farmer's store, and they came and got him out of that.
Were you sure that you were going to be killed if you did not get away?
Well, I felt sure that I'd be killed if I laid there and played dead instead of trying to run.
Nigga said we didn't even touch him. We just opened the door and told them they were the police and let the community deal with him. And they wanted to take that nigga fro off his scalp. Do you hear me? That's how you handle treason. That is what the definition of handling treason is. Like he said, we ain't had to touch him. We just told him what was going on. We told the people what was going on and let him out the door and let the people deal with him. That's what I'm talking about. But I don't advocate for violence.
Israel Fields has since passed away, and Melvin Howard, who is still in law enforcement, couldn't be reached for this report. This is Fields' account of what happened during the people's trial.
And the people were talking about dealing with some pigs. So they took us both and they stood us in the middle of the floor and began asking the people if they thought we were pigs. Well, they said no one would be recognized unless you raised your hand. But if we raised our hand and we said something, we were cut off. We weren't permitted to continue because we were hit upside the head with a pot. He was hit once and I was hit twice. The second time I was hit, I grabbed whoever it was that was swinging the pot. And that's what brought the crowd of people on top of us in the corner and began kicking us and stomping us. Most of them were people in off of the streets and from that area and from other areas in the city.
Were they Black Panthers?
Some claim to be.
The party itself did not touch them. We gave them back to where they come from, the masses.
Just days before Fields and Howard were outed, the Landry administration met with the newly appointed police chief, Clarence Geruso, after Clarence Broussard, a neighborhood grocer and owner of the building the Panthers were currently occupying, moved to have them evicted.
And the black owner came to me and told me these people were occupying his house. So I told him to go get an eviction notice from the court, which he did.
This gave the city and Chief Geruso what they needed to move forward. Tension was mounting.
I got a call that night from a member of the party who said we're going to be in some trouble. We found out about undercover agents, and the cops are going to vamp. That was the lingo of the time. And
What's that?
Vamp?
Yeah.
Vamp meant a raid, an early morning raid in which people often got killed, but somebody always got arrested. The Black Panther Party was named the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense.
That's how they got Fred Hampton. They always do that early morning raid. They still say have the same tactics to this day.
And one of the party principles that we understood perfectly was that they would defend themselves if attacked. And so they were prepared to do that.
September 15th, 1970.
Well, we was out on the porch talking with Liz Hodges' mother. She was trying to get Liz out the house. And then all of a sudden, they said, come on inside. You know, we seen them there lining up, they're about ready to attack. We told the sisters to get this kid and get out. We got on the phone, we called David Hilliard, the chief of staff in California. And he told us, he said, look, don't y'all put up no resistance, you know, give up. But before the phone, they cut the line, you just hit a one big bang, boom, roll them up on them. And from there, 30 minutes later, it was us and them, a rat-a-tat-tat, shooting at us, shooting at us.
Hell yeah. So he called the chief of staff in California who told him, don't resist, just give up. Bitches, you crazy? Man, like he said, before he could get the words out his mouth, they rammed through the door and it was us against them. Man, is you dumb? What you mean don't resist? They kill niggas when they come up in here. They don't come up in here to have a conversation and put you under arrest calmly. Nigga, it's up. What you mean don't resist? All right. But again, a lot of this stuff it's a lot of the chief. He talking about the chief of staff is a black person. That's the person higher up in the Black Panther Party. Whoever he called in California at headquarters was like, yo, they about to raid us, put us in. He tell them niggas don't resist. Nigga, is you crazy? Nigga, I'd rather go out fighting. Are you dumb? He did what he was supposed to do. But it's a lot of side-eyeing in this situation, I'm telling you.
Give up. But before the phone, they cut the line, you just hit a one big bang, boom, roll them up on them. And from there, 30 minutes later, it was us and them, a rat-a-tat-tat, shooting at us, shooting at them.
I could see it coming out of the schoolyard. I mean, it was right there. And you hear all of this pop, 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 pop. It wasn't no plastic in it. Yeah, it was real ammunition.
When the shootout happened, we had our location by the window, and him and I was at the same window.
Working with a registered dietitian can be a game changer.
Man, look. Shit.
So when it stopped, he asked me to crawl to the different rooms, find out how many was injured, how many was dead. And as I crawled through the rooms, you know, and I would ask the same question, how many injured, how many dead? We were steady getting the same response. Nobody injured, nobody was dead.
When he shot the tear gas in the house, we put out a white flag and we surrendered. It let us out. The people come in the community, come out the houses and told them to let us out. Don't shoot us when we come down. Come out.
So the desired community came out and said not to shoot you guys.
Ronald and 10 other NCC.
See that community work? He said the people came out there and said, let them out and don't do nothing to them. That's what community is all about. Them people came out there with their neck on the chopping board and on the line saying, hey, let them out, but don't mess with them. Don't do them nothing. Remember, they got more guns, but they outnumbered by 12,000 people. Let's really be clear about that.
CF members inside the house were taken out and arrested. They were brought to the Orleans Parish Prison.
We went from there to court and then to death row, all in one day.
What you've been hearing on the news have been a bunch of lies, false propaganda, totally unfounded and just not true.
The people just wouldn't buy some of the militancy that they were trying to sell.
The community deal with informers here, not us, and that the policemen, the pigs, fired upon our building,
first. We only returned the fire to protect ourselves. The Desire Project was 100% behind us. The people love us, and the people were out here.
Well, there are no community causes for it, and I think this should be made quite clear. This isn't a local group of individuals who are simply disenchanted with the services. This is not a civil rights uprising. This is not a racial incident.
The shootout would be a wide awakening for the Landrieu administration, who, up until this point, had avoided violent civil unrest in the midst of the social justice uprising. But the confrontation was far from over. Next on the story behind the standoff.
They came and got us because they said that the Black Panthers was going to hold us hostage to use us against them.
I got shot with .00 buck. It went through my breast and came out my arm.
The Desire Projects, once isolated and ignored, had suddenly found themselves in the national spotlight. More than a dozen members of the National Committee to Combat Fascism were now arrested and charged with 5 counts of attempted murder after the 30-minute shootout with police. While at Orleans Parish Prison, Ronald's fingerprints matched a bank robbery that happened on Jefferson Avenue. He would soon be sent to Angola State Penitentiary.
Now, why did you rob? Remember, my auntie said, and I quote, my auntie said about that Angola, she said, it's like, she said, all I know is people got out of Angola without a record. Something fishy right here. She says, I know personally, Eldridge's record was clean enough to get to be board certified attorney. So don't let this Angola thing fool y'all. It's a lot of trickery happening in this situation.
Well, to get some money for our expenses that we need. Not everybody in the party was doing that because their party was workers making money.
For the other Panthers, bail had been set at $100,000 each.
They quickly allotted the case, accepted the charges.
The case had been allotted to Judge Israel Augustine,
The only black judge at criminal court. How did that happen? Just by random accident? Well, I'll let you be the judge of that.
Black judge.
In the meantime, Desire leaders expressed their disapproval of how the city handled the confrontation and the reason behind it all. During a press conference a day after the shooting, they cited the violent outbreak as the result of the city turning its back on a community that desperately needed its attention.
I think it can occur any place where you have the conditions. And I think that the conditions there, as we said in our statement, cry out for remedial action.
We went right back in the next day and reopened the office and started again.
The remaining NCCF members who had left the Piety Street house before the shootout had taken up inside of an abandoned apartment on Desire Parkway, right next to the community center, continuing their free community programs. But the fact of the matter was they were still in Desire, and the city still wanted them out. 2 months after the first confrontation, the NOPD was prepared to make a move.
Then we have a staff meeting at 3 in the morning saying that the police were getting ready to go down to Desire, the Desire Housing Project, to evict the members of the Black Panther Party that were illegally occupying the Desire Housing Project.
Look at them.
It was suggested that I go with the mayor to help logistically bring the kids, I call them kids, that were young folks out of the Panthers out of Desire. I told them that was not going to work. You're asking me to go involve myself in possibly bringing death to those folks because it was understood that the cops were going to be coming down in large numbers.
Tucker went anyway in an attempt to avoid any bloodshed.
So I walked out of his office, headed down to Desire, picked up guys that had been working down there, Cecil Carter, Don Hubbard, Charlie Alwell. And our attempt was to begin to negotiate with the Panthers because we had the creds and what they explained to us was that we got to do what we got to do.
You notice
charbroiled Frisco
since the beginning of time, they always use one of us for quote unquote negotiations. Always.
November 19th, 1970, a second standoff was looming, and this time 250 police officers assembled and marched into the Desire projects.
There was nothing about that confrontation that reeked of de-escalation. NOPD went bananas.
They came in there with blood in their eyes. They wanted to kill something.
They wanted us out. They wanted to evict us. And so they came down with a little army tank against a bunch of teenagers.
Although we are not nonviolent people, we will resist this by any attempt by the fascist power structure to pursue their murderous plan of genocide on the national community to combat fascism and the black people of this country by any means necessary, including revolutionary suicide.
But as the army of police officers, tank in tow, prepared for a second showdown with the Panthers, so did the Desire community.
The word got around, the police coming out with a little tank. So everybody was saying with a tank, not here. So people just started coming out.
So people refused to leave because they said, if we leave, y'all gonna kill these boys.
You got like over 400 people, mostly like 400 like teenagers and stuff. The police saw that, they were shocked because of the crowd. We had the tank surrounded between the wedge between the Panthers and the police, and we encircled them. So the thing is, we had like a standoff.
What were some of the things you heard out there?
Power to the people, get those pigs out of here. I don't think Clarence Giruso, who was chief at the time, wanted a real confrontation, a real shootout.
You got the cops armed to the teeth. You got...
Y'all see them YNs from the 70s? Imagine if our YNs had the right idea. Woo!
The people that are the citizens that live in the residence of Desire, and they're literally face to face, facing off. And of course, the Panthers in the building that they had taken up in Desire. And so it was a tense situation. All it took was just almost anything to set it off. It was suggested to the mayor that you got to pull the cops out.
Ultimately, Landrieu and Chief Giruso agreed. Desire residents had used themselves as a shield to protect the Panthers, just as the Panthers had protected them.
In the community interest, if the police hadn't left that place as a result of negotiations that had been made and pending court action, the people who would have lost would have been that community, and I think the total community.
I'd never seen anything like this before. When the Panthers came out, the residents literally carried those kids on their shoulders. It turned into a huge, almost like a street fest, because they were their protectors. Now all of the attention was focused on Desire.
The story behind the standoff continued.
You know that pissed them off royally, right? Oh, so we done came in here to get y'all niggas. Y'all got 400 plus kids, and that's just 400. Remember, this project holds 12,000. If you're just getting in here, this Desire Housing Project held 12,000 residents. 8,000 of those residents were under 18. So if they only got 400, listen, if they only got 400 kids to shield the Panthers, you got to know when the word got back around and everybody else come outside, it didn't matter if they had guns. They were not the police was not going to win that fight. The police was not going to win this fight by no means. Too many people against the police. They probably would have had to call in the military like they always did. Yes, hey, 2T, 12,000 Injuns. Yeah, little feather. 12,000 people in one housing project. 8,000 of those people were children, or at least under 18. But I love how they protected our people, huh? With their whole bodies.
News after this.
Children have always been fearless, though. It's adults who have the most fear.
The attention was now focused on the plight of Desire.
How can we, smug white people, say what they should do? We have done nothing to stop the violence that is being perpetrated against these people.
The NOPD and city administration made national headlines after the violent shootout with the NCCF. It even brought actress and activist Jane Fonda to the Desire neighborhood.
We're having a demonstration in front of the Housing Authority office to demonstrate support
Don't.
for the NCCF and to...
In the future, because we're coming back around to this. What goes around comes around. Was the world is a circle. We don't need their help. We don't need no celebrity help, no help. I don't care if they're your favorite. We don't need no celebrity help. We don't need no clear help. We don't need no Hispanic help. We don't need no Asian help. We don't need none of this. Listen, this is very pivotal because another revolution or another situation is going to happen like this. It may not be in my lifetime, but y'all have to understand this is the biggest problem we have. This is why celebrity worship got to go out the window. We don't need Beyonce coming down here talking about she's standing with us, Jay-Z, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B. We don't need none of that. As you saw, the community within themselves, the grassroots did a perfect job. They did not need anybody else. In the future, you don't need nobody help. You are the help. Let's really be clear about that. I just want to make that clear. That's where we start messing up, allowing all these folks in. Here come the clears. Here come the celebrities. No, that's all distractions. No. We need to learn from our ancestors the what to do and also the what not to do. That's very pivotal.
to demand.
We don't need them marching with us. Look,
they allow the NCCF
if you ask me, she was sent in by the powers that be. Hey, go down there and dilute this shit and take some of the focus and kind of mess up, unscramble the minds so we can make this a press thing. It gives me, she's had the 3 taps on the shoulder and they sent her down there. I don't give a damn who y'all liked it. I don't trust none of these folks. I don't even like celebrities. So even the ones that's dead, I don't like them.
To live in their community.
The NOPD would use her visit to make one more effort to remove the NCCF for good. November 25th, 1970, Jane Fonda rented 4 cars to transport some of the members of the NCCF and their supporters to the Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention in Washington, D.C., but they wouldn't make it past state lines.
Police just was call on interstate and arrest them.
Betty was with the remaining members inside the apartment on Desire Parkway.
I happened to look out the window and I see this mail truck about 1 o'clock in the morning. It was a knock on the door and another sister opened in.
Is this the Betty my auntie talking about that she said they never heard of? I'm just asking.
It's a deceptive device that they use. I thought it was the priest because the police came dressed as priests. You know, the police pulled her out and they came in shooting. That's how I got shot.
Where
and
did
we
you
were
get
arrested. I got shot with .00 bucket, went through my breast and came out my arm.
I think this Betty, I'm about to send a picture to my auntie. Hold on. I'm about to ask my auntie if this is Betty. We need answers. Take a picture. Auntie, is this the Betty you speak of? Thank you. My bad, y'all. I need answers.
I still have 5 bullets in my body.
Still?
Pellets, yes. Because the doctor said at the rate of speed that they were traveling, it wouldn't be infectious.
The National Committee to Combat Fascism would spend the next 11 months behind bars awaiting trial.
Trial began this morning for 12 Black Panthers accused of the attempted murder of 5 New Orleans police officers.
Part of the Panther programs, part of the 10-point program was that black people should be tried by a jury of their peers. I contacted Charles Gary, who was Huey Newton's lawyer in Oakland, and asked for help. And Gary sent me a pamphlet done by a colleague of his called Minimizing Racism in Jury Trials. And that pamphlet became my Bible. The law of Louisiana at the time was that a criminal defendant had 12 peremptory challenges. That's a challenge where you can take somebody off the jury for no reason at all. Remember, we had 12 defendants. That gave us 144 peremptory challenges. The jury selection took over a month. The trial only took a week.
The NCCF members arrested for the September 15th shootout with police would be found not guilty on all charges. It was the first Black Panther trial in the country to be tried by a Black judge and a majority Black jury.
Today, every business needs a website.
Well, that's interesting, but I'm glad they got off.
In 1970, the city of New Orleans successfully stopped the Black Panther Party from maintaining a foothold in the Desire community. But some would say they failed to address why the Panthers were needed in the first place. What could have been an opportunity to change the outcome of those living in Desire was instead met with misunderstanding and fierce resistance of who the Panthers were and what they stood for.
Do you feel like there is a way that you could have done things differently, or if you could go back and change anything, would you do anything differently?
If I could think about it, I could probably come up with some individual errors that I would redo in a different way. I was determined to integrate the city in a business way, in a social way, in a political way, so that everybody had equal opportunities. While I may not have achieved that perfectly, I think we made great progress.
Desire was a page of the history of New Orleans that had been left out.
Once the Panthers, they got the Panthers out the project, they held the drugs down. They kept the drugs from like flowing back there. Then after they got them out, that's when everything just like busted wide open.
The Hope 6 grant led to demolition.
So there could be a whole lot of reasons why they wanted to get the Black Panthers out there. Because as long as the Panthers were back there, like he said, they held off the drugs, meaning they wasn't a whole bunch of drugs coming in there. But once they were able to get them out of the Desire Project, he said it flooded the project with drugs. You see what I'm saying? That's crazy. It's so multi-layered as to why they wanted these folks up out of there. Yep, and then you make so much sense. This is my therapy. Miss Priscilla, then comes what? The crack epidemic. Less than 10 years later. Boom, here come the crack epidemic. Now, why is this important? There's 12,000 people, 12,000 Black people in one housing project. If you can hook that project up, you got a large population of the city's Black people. Because remember, 12,000 people was living in one housing project. If you drop crack in there, it's like dropping a bomb. It's literally like dropping a bomb. Crazy work, because the crack came less than 10 years later. Crazy work.
Of housing projects across the city. Today, there's nothing to remember what happened here on Piety Street. Instead, it's now a mixed-income community called the Estates.
All of the housing development throughout the city was able to have one building left to replicate what it was before, Katrina. Well, they didn't do that for Desire.
But what does remain is the ongoing battle against social injustice in America.
And it's ironic that it's happening again. In the 50 years. So they had their feet on our neck then, and they have their feet on our neck right now.
50 years ago, a new wave of activists would define a decade in the war against systemic racism and segregationist policies. 50 years later, a shattered country began to piece itself together, and those who were left with no hope somehow found hope again. And that battle waged on.
Y'all know how I feel about Black Lives Matter. I don't give a fuck about that ugly ass shit. We need to be We need to be black nationalists like Malcolm. We need to become black nationalists, and we need to be unapologetic black nationalists. Now, this is Moon Landrieu's grandson. He was the mayor too. I told y'all, listen, these folks cannot be successful unless they get people around them. I'm not saying that these folks, is in on it, but y'all gonna have to pull up Sunday when Top Cats from BCU, Big Chief University, come over here Sunday. I will put a reminder out when I get the time. On Sunday, I didn't show y'all the picture because this is the Zulu Club. This is the Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club, okay? On Sunday, Chief Topcast is gonna come over here. Shout out to Legendary Topcast. Make sure y'all go follow him on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. He's gonna come on and he's gonna give a history of this Zulu and all of this stuff. And like I said, he's going all the way back to the Battle of New Orleans. We need to be here and show up for that. Sunday, when I get the doggone time, I will put a reminder out for y'all to make sure y'all pull up. Now, as it pertains to this Black Panther situation, let me say this. The first thing my aunt said when I spoke to her was we were infiltrated, right? She was like, we were infiltrated, so it was kind of hard for us to even really have any type of anything, because the first thing that was happening was we were infiltrated, not just by the Negroes in undercover cops, and shout out to the Negroes for letting the people handle them as they should. The Black Panther Party said we didn't touch them, we let the people handle them. And it wasn't just the clears. I mean, it wasn't just them. It was the Weathermen, the clear so-called white radical party, who some deemed are used or called as the white Black Panthers. They were also, in my opinion, and somewhat of my aunt's opinion, they were part of the infiltration. They came in with acid. They came in with drugs. She said they came in there talking about they had drugs when they didn't have no drugs, because as a matter of fact, they were there to keep the drugs out of the projects. But then they get helped by this white Black Panther group called the Weathermen, and it all hell breaks loose. On top of that, the infiltration from the blacks and all types of stuff. It runs deep. But again, not only will we have to be able to do these things on our own, we have to be okay with applying the law of treason. Treason has to be put in effect in order for us to successfully do what it is we need to do. You know, one thing I'll give about the KKK, and one thing I'll give to the clear people. You know the reason why, even the white bikers, you know the reason why they so successful? Because nobody snitched and nobody break the code. You know why nobody break the code? Probably because they set something in place to make the mother effers terrified to even do so. Honestly, you get it? You get it? When people don't feel like there are consequences, a lot of things can happen. Not implying anything, but what I will say is our people in the 70s were strong. They were community, and they were behind our people. The Black Panther Party protected them, and guess what? They protected the Black Panther Party. They said that I said that was Betty. She didn't respond back, girl. I sent her the picture. She didn't respond back, but we'll see. We'll see. And when she let me know, I'm gonna let y'all know, because we got to see what's going on with Betty. Because my auntie said, Betty said, they said, she didn't say it. They said Betty got shot, and she never heard from Betty again. But she fled. My auntie fled. So who knows? That might be the Betty, because that Betty said she got shot through the arm. But this Betty, my auntie said, was 3 months pregnant, allegedly. But I'll let y'all know what she say when she let me know if that was Miss Betty or not, because we trying to see something. Miss Betty, what was going on? And was that you? And like my auntie said, why all them niggas went up to Angola and came home with no record? Whole other story. We got the same situation going on in 2025 with our YNs. It's just misdirected. Boy, if they ever caught on. Children have always been fearless. It's the adults that haven't been. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, and you can't teach a young dog old tricks. So tricks are for kids or something like that. I don't know, girl. I don't know. Tina Houston, thank you for the super chat. Love you, Voodoo. Love you too, boo. Thank you so much for the super chat. Let me see. Did I read these super chats? Angela, thank you for the super chat. Hey, Lil Suge, much love and light. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Deserving one, thank you for the super sticker. Esther Messiah, thank you for the super chat. They made a choice. Absolutely. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Tiffany, thank you for becoming a new member. William, hey, beautiful. Thank you for the super sticker. Shout out to everybody in the building, y'all. I got to get up off of here. I will see y'all on the next one. I will go live tomorrow at the dollhouse. I went and bought a buku plant, so I will be spending the morning time at least gardening. Look at say. He already know I'm getting ready to get off here. He get on my nerves. Anyway, but shout out to everybody in the building. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. We do this every Friday for Educational Friday. We pull up old stuff and we try to uncover the truth. And oh, by the way, make sure y'all are around when I'm going to interview my uncle who was a part of who was a part of the Black Muslim movement during the Farrakhan, Elijah Muhammad Ali. They say he was one of the inside men. We gonna come back with the Muslims. We gonna roll it out. You feel what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody in the building. I'll see y'all on the next one. Love y'all down to the ground. I gotta get up off of here. Where the outro at? All right, y'all. Peace.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. We live, baby. Come on. That's right. Okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, let's go. It's your boy Big Chew, the voice of the beat. You know what I won't blaze up. Come on, blaze up.
It's the beat for me.
Wow, 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 for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Drop it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Do it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Come on, baby, we are. For your boy. For your boy. Also for your boy. Fix it for your boy. Drop it for your, lift it up. Penny bust it open, lift it up. Yeah, come on, lift it up. Penny bust it open for your B-O-Y. Penny, for your rockin' for your lift it up, baby. Mix it with your bust or not. Come on, Blaze, so you know. Drop me a nasty beat.
Mr. Carroll, how you give the voodoo doll time to talk? I don't get no fucking time to talk.
Who the voodoo doll is?
The nigga you just had up here.